Welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we take the movies we love, break them apart to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by my friend, co-host, and man who is an island, man who puts himself in fish, man who does not like to share.
I knew I was going to have to be Ray Stevenson for this. Alex Dandino.
Dandino is an island. Dandino knows how to protect himself. Neither here nor there. People business before today's just wit episode. People, it's official. We're on Patreon. Patreon.com/FilmAlchemistPod. The best way to support the show, the best way to get more of the show, but also the best way to help craft the show. Right? So you get a vote on our Patreon exclusive libraries over there. We have a big, ever-growing library. Commentaries, miniseries. We're always trying to ask our patrons what we can do to make it better for them. So if there's something you'd like to see on the show, something you want to help steer the show in that direction, get on over to patreon.com/FilmAlchemistPod. Especially important this month, if you are able to support us, and you can, if you could be so kind, Patreon is the only way you can get every episode in the October Mega Marathon, right? 31 days, 31 pods. We're but a month away. We've been working hard to get ahead of that. If you go to Patreon, that's where our commentary and our 2 Patreon exclusives will exist to fill in the entire... You know it's October. We are Halloween fanatics. You know you want a pod every single day. You know you want that pod every day, right? It just feels better, right? 31 is better than 28. You know you want that. So go to patreon.com/FilmAlchemistPod to support. Make sure you go subscribe to the YouTube channel, Film Alchemist. The email, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. We're on every social media you're on, I think. Now there's like a fucking ton of them. So go on over there, follow us, give us a follow. We'll see what's up. Also, make sure you leave the 5-star ratings and reviews on any podcast app you find podcast. All the podcast apps you find them, right? Help us defeat the algorithmic Lighthouse keeper that won't just let us be, won't just let us write our little journals.
Won't let us in, won't let us be. Won't
let us in because he's getting in. Fucking knows that survival's on the line. Help us defeat these digital Grueners.
Don't be that guy.
All right. If you haven't figured it out yet, we are starting the Pod Gets Whet month. Whet. With a movie that I love, Cold Skin. Now, I know the letterbox love for this movie was not as much as I had thought. I watched this movie right when it came out, loved it. Today was a different experience, man. The letterbox was not as loving as I thought. But it was really awesome to just sit and rewatch this movie, get another like just powerhouse Ray Stevenson hour.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Ray Stevenson. We lost him earlier this year. He is so fucking good, man. He was I remember falling in love with Ray Stevenson in college when we started watching Rome. Because Sopranos was such a big transcendent hit that anything they put out, we just watch.
Yeah.
Right? And Rome was awesome. I loved it. They had this slew of like terrible shows I hated, like John from Cincinnati, I think it was called. Or John from Cleveland, whatever the fuck.
No,
they had shows that I was like...
It was John from Cincinnati.
I was like, I don't like these shows, but they're on HBO. I have to watch. Like, I would watch anything they made. And Rome came out, and he played Titus Pulo, right? This legionnaire who went into kind of a life of crime, became a mafia boss, whatever. But I just remember seeing this guy. I'm like, what a fucking treasure of a man they have found here. And then obviously he went on to, a great career as a character actor, kind of a villain. He got to play the Punisher in Punisher Warzone.
Which he was great.
Is by far the superior Punisher movie.
Yes.
Just a great powerhouse actor, man. And now we got to spend time with him today in this really meaty role for him. And I loved him as Gruener. So Cold Skin is the story of a young lad who's sent to an island to be a weather official. There's a lighthouse keeper on said island, right? He shows up. The weather official's not there that he's replacing, and he begins his journey into monsters and madness with this lighthouse keeper named Gruener. Yeah. So it's an interesting movie. This movie is fucking cold. This movie strips out a lot of the humanity piece of the film. This is essentially the Lighthouse, but you strip out all the art house.
Yeah.
This is exactly how I put it. Two men getting real down and gross with each other.
Yeah.
So Alex, opening thoughts on Cold Skin.
Yeah, it's hard not to watch this movie and think of the Lighthouse, but it's not the Lighthouse, like even in the slightest. It has like if Edgar Allan Poe lived on an island at one point in his life and was like, I'm really sad, I'm going to write about it. This is probably close to something he would have come up with.
Close, yeah.
Like, this is like got that nice gothic horror flavor for all you folks out there that like that kind of stuff. I'd never seen this movie. I really liked it.
Yeah.
It was a really interesting. It's just a really interesting. I mean, I think it's very interesting. It's the sexiest meteorology movie you could ever come up with, I think.
Incorrect. Twister.
Those guys weren't meteorologists; they were storm chasers. Okay,
That's the same exact job.
No. One is more adventurous and awesome. This is nothing.
Just because one's in a truck and not in front of a green screen,
don't
that's
you
the same
dare
job.
besmirch Bill Paxton. How dare you?
I'm just saying, Bill Paxton and everyone on the cast of Twister fucks.
You know why they
And
call
only
Bill...
one person in this movie fucks, and it's gross.
Let me tell you something here. While we might have lost both Bill Paxton and Ray Stevenson, there's only one man, meteorology-wise, they can call extreme, and that's Bill Paxton, my friend. Anyways.
Sad, dude. And Philip Seymour Hoffman. Now I'm sad, man. These movies are just treasure troves of lost
These
great
little,
actors.
yeah, like this is like one of those like it's like a lost Ray Stevenson movie. It's really sad because he's just very good.
He's really good at
Yeah.
it.
Again, sexy meteorology, fish people, fucking
I don't even
fish
think they were
people.
meteorologists yet. All they had was just like little fucking telescopes and paper.
Well, that was
to
my
draw
thing.
on.
Is like
He was more of a
trying
nature man.
I was trying to divine, is it meteorology or are you just doing like the Darwin thing where you're just observing and reporting?
Yeah, because
like
he was a weather official.
Because that first night when he's in his little shack, he's flipping through supposedly the old meteorologist notebooks. Yeah. And like there's I do love like when these kinds of things happen in this movie, in this kind of movie, these like I don't know how to describe them properly because they're not like needle drops or anything. It's more just like or like the bottom dropping out of the narrative, but like
viola drops.
But when he's like flipping through the notebook that first night and just scrawled next to drawings like Darwin was wrong. I'm like, awesome. Like that's the kind of shit that's the kind of shit I really like about the beginning, the tops of movies.
Well, it's one of those, it's like the art director's like, they're going to know it's Darwin. They're going to know it's Darwin. We need to address. Meanwhile, this is 1,000% Darwin. This is a man who's left, right? When Darwin went to the Galapagos, right? And all of a sudden he's like, look at this treasure trove of beasts that have evolved independently from my fucking mother Europe, right? Because they've had this different environment with which to, because in the drawing we see even these little abominations that we don't see in the movie,
absolutely.
right?
Like one's
And we see all this
devouring
stuff, and I was like, this is exactly Darwin. This is a cold, remote rock in the middle of the ocean where this entirely new species that is unknown to us has just evolved from like the ancient times in a different way. It is Darwin. It is Darwin. But neither here nor there, right?
But can I before we
oh yeah, go ahead.
Before we go further, can I quote something that might be of interest to you? Now, here's the thing. For those of you who are new to the show, but those of you who have been around for a while, if anything is more, if there's any Griffey catnip for a film besides just unadulterated murder in a lot of horror films.
From whatever happened in From Russia with Love when those two ladies fought for him, that's number one.
Yeah.
Number
two, with a bullet, is superimposed type at the top of a movie. Now, before you hear anything, before you see anything,
I'm glad my nipples are off camera because I'm tweaking.
This is the fart smelling, nipple tweaking kind of stuff that Griffey's all about.
Not as much. That I was thinking it was more of a fine charcuterie of things I like.
Oh, that's okay. Cool. So we're going to be
refined. Charcuterie,
a fine charcuterie with like this is the beluga caviar within the charcuterie of Griffey's.
This is the stack of lunchable cheese and ham.
No, don't make yourself seem like a common man. This is a very
common man. Common man.
This is Griffey's catnip caviar. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you.
True.
Friedrich Nietzsche.
Extra important words as we prepare ourselves for the October Mega Marathon.
No shit. But having said all that, this is the first thing we see of this movie. And when I paused it actually and screenshotted that so I could read it, but also remember this is definitely a Griffey movie.
I would like a whole pod where you just read to me and try to attack my bona fides as a real American. But that's
Excuse me, I'm not attacking your bona fides at all. I'm saying that this is the thing that makes a movie like if a movie could not be any less your flavor. Like
no.
Anything like a rom-com with, whatever, like something that is completely the opposite of Griffey's taste. If it starts that way, you will at least watch the first 5 minutes.
Oh, for certain. Yeah. I like it. I mean, Stephen King does this before every single chapter of every one of his books. He puts a quote from another story.
Absolutely.
It kind of sets you in a mindset for what the journey is, right? So
I
this
like
one
that
is,
too. I like
Monster fighter, beware that you don't become more monstrous than what you're fighting. Right? You stare into the abyss. What if it stares back? What if it stares back at you and you don't like what it sees, or it doesn't like what it sees, whatever.
Right.
Famous quote that I've always loved. We meet Gruener, who's this essentially just strung out drunk, right? Ray Stevenson. It's hard for him to even... We get the sense that it wasn't typhus that killed the other guy. We get the sense that he's lying. But he's playing very... It's almost as if he doesn't recognize other human beings. Yeah. Right? That he doesn't need... So his Gruener in this film is so fucking removed and remote. And he's hard to suffer for a lot of the movie, right? He's just this really brutal man.
Yeah.
That I think they tie up beautifully at the end of the film. But it kind of sets us on our paces. And the movie pretty quickly gets to... He's sitting there just having his little tobacco and reading this journal. And all of a sudden, we're in a full-on monster attack movie.
Yeah.
Right? These creatures from the quickly. Deep, right? They come out in droves, and they fucking start attacking his house. He fights. He defends himself. The house gets mostly burned down. This sets us to a point where now... And honestly, I think the monsters in this movie are fucking awesome.
Great.
And they do a great job of... Yes, they do a great job of mixing when they're practical and when they use from afar to show them with CG crawling and moving at different speeds and paces.
The practical makeup in this was... This is the thing I really appreciated. It wasn't this grotesquerie of modern science a lot of the time that we see. What I liked the most was that they really were like these streamlined characters of almost just like... They looked like just like sort of like humanoid sharks. It was really interesting. I liked the character design a lot.
They're what a mermaid would actually look like, probably.
I really appreciated it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just thought they were so cool. Because, again, this movie's also kind of Shape of Water if you strip out the whimsy. You know what I mean? If there's no foreplay and musical, and it's just like, fucking hot flesh meet cold flesh.
Right.
And it's gross, and you don't like it. But that's the movie, that's the pace we're on, right? Is... Gruener sets up, hey, you can come to my lighthouse if you bring wares, right? If you got booze, you got potatoes for vodka making, and you got tobacco, you can come here and just live like the shittiest life ever with me. Fine. The impetus for the movie begins, right? Because they're fighting monsters and this and that. The impetus is when he follows Gruener, and he finds that one of the creatures attacks him, right? Mm-hmm. And he's up close with it. He's ready to fight back. And Gruener has a gun on him. He has a gun on the creature. And Gruner's like, don't kill her. Right? And he starts doing the, this is my pal. It's wearing a Chris Evans sweater. Be cool. And he relents. And this sets us on the path of the movie, right? He needs Gruener to survive these waves of monster. Meanwhile, there's a monster in the house that Gruener lives with. That story expands as well as we go. And this is our setup, right? Is he's essentially this naturologist. Even if he's a meteorologist, he's kind of a low-key like Darwinist, right?
Definitely a Darwinist.
Taking in the wonders of this new creature that's evolved without us, meanwhile just slaughtering hundreds of said creatures' brethren. Like, they kill a lot of these fucking creatures in the movie.
A lot.
And
like
so
a shocking amount.
It exists in this odd place, right? This odd, because he says at one point, he said that Gruener shows him the courtesy of an executioner, which I love that line. It's essentially just kind of blunt reality facts all the time because we gonna die, right? The Lighthouse is kitted out to look like it's in fucking Mad Max.
Yeah.
What do you make of this? I actually think it's a great start to kind of act 2 of this movie. I love where this movie exists for a while, and then it kind of just spirals off into this deep primal essence of us stuff. But what do you think about the creature inside, the creature without? Without. I said that wrong. Whatever I said it wrong. I know that much. The metaphor in this movie exists kind of like crunchy peanut butter, right? Where you're like, oh, it's peanut butter, but there's tons of shit in it all the time, so it never really tastes like peanut butter.
Right.
That's what metaphor is in this movie.
Got it.
It's the peanut and the crunchy peanut butter.
I like your analogy. That's a good.
Yeah.
It also says a lot about how you prefer your metaphors, which is fun.
I do like crunchy peanut butter. My wife.
Are you asking how I feel about the darkness of human nature? Is that the question? Is that what you're asking?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
We're not talking about metaphors right now.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought we were just talking about metaphors.
This movie kind of exists in 2 realities, right? Gross, fleshy stuff. Metaphor.
Got it. Okay. So you're asking about the gross, fleshy stuff.
I suppose so, yeah. I suppose so.
I mean, I think it's weird. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily because the movie exists in this sort of fantasy realm, even though I mean it's completely plausible, I guess, that there are mer people around. Or maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm not a scientist or a meteorologist. I think that for the how do I put this? For the eeriness, maybe is the way to put it. For the eeriness that like this movie sort of evokes a lot of the time, because there is, I think, like there is this thing, and this is why the movie stays interesting. Because I think that once the little dude is in the lighthouse, or at least like sort of like co-living in the lighthouse, except for that time he locks him out on the fucking terrace or whatever, and like survive the night,
dude.
Which is like, fuck, dude. All right. I think that there's a good tendency that the movie could get really stale quickly, like shockingly stale and shockingly bad very quickly. That's when it becomes this like B-level version of the movie, The Lighthouse, that doesn't really work. Mm-hmm. I think because there's this otherness that is like a proven entity, not just like some psychological issue or something like that, or some psychological damage that these 2 men share. Because there's a proven entity, and it's not just knocking at your door, it's literally inside your house and, you know, constantly coming after you. There's something more. It's the concrete nature of being able to see it and feel it and like know it's there that I think actually makes the movie palatable. Oddly enough, because I mean, and you know, we've watched enough movies where it's like I don't necessarily like having to deal with. I like a little more, you know, mystery in the game there, but I do think this movie does a good job of letting the realness of the scenario play out in a really a way that keeps me engaged. I don't know if I'm explaining this well.
So I'll try to say what you're saying too, because I agree. The metaphor in this movie is so fucking blatantly in your face, right? When he shoots the flare, and we see these dark, shadowy figures that look like the ocean itself moving up to get them, right? When we see the dark primordial soup coming back to drag us back in, right?
Right.
The metaphor is very obvious, right? Nature is coming for us.
Right.
What the movie then does is says, now we're going to fucking shoot the metaphor in the face and splatter its red blood everywhere so you can, you know, fucking feel us fighting back. We're not figuratively and metaphorically fighting nature. We're fucking shooting its face with a shotgun. We're chopping its forehead with an axe, right? So that you can feel that in your bones, right? That awesome shot when the first time he sees it, he gets a panic attack and he sinks back into the room, right? Yeah. And Gruener's just out there, this fucking awesome Ray Stevenson moment. Yeah. And then the next time he locks him outside too, right? And he's like, I'm just going to go to bed. Which kind of begs the question, why are you out there fighting them every night if your defenses are strong enough to just stay in? Neither here nor there. I know they bring increased numbers as the movie goes on.
Still, though, I wonder that myself. But
as their bond is disintegrating, they bring more and more water folk.
Right.
But when he opens the door and now he's covered in the blood of the metaphor, right? Awesome. Okay, so it is, everything in this movie is supposed to be watched at a surface level, right? We know that there are these deeper things they're getting out, right? Human nature, nature itself, man versus beast. Mm-hmm. We know that they're playing these games because they fucking bash you over the head with it. But the thing is, I think the movie does a good job of, despite it being so concrete at all times, the footing is so strong, right? And the actors are so good that a lot of like what Ray Stevenson's doing, right? There are moments where he flares up in rage versus friend, right? Or he goes after the creature, this and that. Right. Where those moments are actually played with the subtlety that the metaphor never gets, right? That the treatment of that never happened. But these kind of unsaid things that hang between men, I think that's where the movie does a great, great job. Like, you know, obviously, he...
I know what you're about to say.
We do the Gruener is an island, right? Love that, right? Man is island, this, that. All right, kind of cool. We get this art shit. And then he comes back in, and I think the caption literally said rhythmic thumping. And he walks up, and Gruener's just blasting this creature. There's a really strange decision, is that the creature's hand goes up under his, like on his lat area. And then friend just goes back downstairs, and he's just kind of like, hey, man, get water. We got to fight tonight, right? Or actually, that's what he says. He's like, Gruener's an island. I don't need to carry dead weight. As he's like going outside to wash himself off, I guess. And we just kind of let that hang, man. And the movie does a great job of just letting those things hang, right? Those lulls between violence, where we're fighting the metaphor of the movie, I think is where it's really fun. Like, it's really a well-written script, right? I like the voiceover can be a little monotonous, right? Is he to start saying, how could he, I've been seeking peace through nothingness. Well, no shit, right? Just like no time traveler who has a great life goes back in time. We know that if you're on this rock, you're bad. But I like those, because even that, right? When he's just like, how could he like her cold skin? Well, don't say that. Like, just show it. But
the title of the movie.
It's not... It's not obnoxious to me. For the voiceover is fine, and I think it's what the script, when it chooses not to say stuff, that's where kind of the brilliance of the script happens, because it says almost everything at some point.
Yeah,
but it gives you those moments of pause, I think, to help it work.
Yeah, I think in terms of voiceover, it works because it locks you in pretty quickly to that gothic horror aesthetic. Mm-hmm. And I think that if it was any other movie, I wouldn't be able to tolerate it, because I think that voiceover, I watched adaptation too many times. It is like one of those like really weird crutches, but this
not
works
good usually.
But this works really well because of the aesthetic and because of like the general story that's set up. Is like this gothic horror, like this is a guy who is like, these are two solitary dudes. We're not going to ever be able to hear what Gruener's inner thoughts are, because it's probably just, I got to fuck that fish and then drink some booze and then, kill some more fish and fuck that fish again. Like, Gruener's got a real id inner monologue. I think
hope she don't get pregnant, bro. She got one of your kids, got you for 18 years. That's what Gruener's hearing. It's just Kanye. Dirty gold dishes, different exotic fishes. different
exotic fishes. Oh.
Dirty hot bitches that are exotic fishes. He's just hearing Kanye lyrics in his head the whole time.
That's why
Gruener is an island, and the lighthouse on said island is Kanye West. They
originally were gonna do these juxtaposing voiceovers, but they realized that Gruener was only listening to Kanye West in his head, and they're like, we can't do that.
Gruener as I only listen to Kanye guy is probably the best thing I've ever like. That
that's
fits
pretty good.
So goddamn perfect.
That fits really well. I mean, we're gonna have to figure out how to maybe supercut some. Granted, I'm not really sure where you're allowed to find license-free unlicensed Kanye music, but I certainly would.
Kanye's probably the one guy that would find our podcast and nuke us from space.
Absolutely.
Because that's
1000%.
what Kanye is also an island.
Kanye is an island, as is Gruener. But the dude's voiceover works because he's this, peace through nothing. The peace through nothingness thing is a great, that's why we have to hear this guy's inner monologue, because it's meaningful voiceover, and it doesn't just tell me it. Okay, that's a lie. It does tell you things you're already seeing and that you already know, but it's part of the vibe, I think.
Right. Well, they do that. Here's an example of this. They do that. He's seen them fuck. They don't say anything. They got a battle.
Right.
The next thing we see is him watching her swim.
Mm-hmm.
We cut back to in the house where he's, whittling a whalebone or whatever.
Right.
And he's definitely just listening to the sounds of them fuck again.
Right.
Right? And right before he had said, how can he not be repulsed by her cold skin? Right? He gives her a name. So, although he's telling us these things that we should just see he's thinking as he's listening to them fuck.
Right.
He's at least kind of asking questions more than telling us at some points. Right? It's kind of just imagine how cold her skin is.
Right.
Which, if you're not a nautically inclined person, if you're not a fisherman, we see her wearing a big sweater. Right? She obviously lives in the house, so she's not a fully aquatic creature. She's kind of an amphibious creature. So you're
she's
okay,
looking no more.
Right, but I was I don't know that I immediately would have thought cold pussy. Right?
Right.
That sounded
What's
crude
weird,
as soon as I said it. If the movie was called, it's called Cold Skin, we should have called it Cold Pussy.
I think what's weird is while he is listening to that, there is this in real faintly in the distance you can hear. Yeah, it's strange that they do some strange things.
No one man should have all this pussy. That's a great. No one Gruener should have.
That's
all
actually
this pussy.
That's actually the night after they kill all those mermen and he hears that song. That's what he's hearing. Actually, that's the morning hymn of the mer peoples. Oh, hey, oh.
But
we're still going to get sued by Kanye.
We're Kanyeing. But yeah, what I think is I don't think that's something the audience would think. That's a tactile and important distinction the movie makes.
Yeah.
Even though it's called Cold Skin, until he mentions that, I had never thought of that creature with actually cold skin. No more cold than anyone on this fucking desolate rock. Right?
Absolutely.
So I think it's the movie uses it. How could he not be repulsed by the cold skin, which is a way to highlight the bestiality nature, right? Because there is a thought, right? This is a Jay and Silent Bob bit, right? But if you saw an alien, would you fuck it? Yeah, man. Because everyone would say, hey, there's homeboy.
Look at this homeboy. He fucked an alien.
And I think most of us would be like, yeah, I think I talked about it on Species. I would die that way, for sure. If they sent me on a mission to bang throughout the universe, I would put it on the line to do that.
Well, I mean, if that's your mission.
Because why not? Because why not? At least you contributed something to the universe. To be the first at anything is a great... Well, not anything. But...
Yeah, let's not get into that.
So I would imagine there's a lot of people who watch this movie that would go, yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. I would like to Gruener right now. And the movie has to stop us and say, no.
No, you would not.
No. Because the movie goes to...
Have you heard Jesus? No,
yes,
you do not.
The movie goes to extraordinary lengths to make it seem unappealing, except for when she slides the hand up, right? Because this is essentially a Stockholm Syndrome captive sexual assault kind of a movie.
Did you think at any point the reason she's doing that is she's trying to get the courage to fucking straight up murder him?
No, I think she is a creature because I believe he said he found her on the rocks. He kind of brought her in and saved her.
Right, yeah.
So there are two kind of reads. One, this is obviously an unacceptable pairing that Gruener has because essentially he just has sex with this thing and beats it all the time.
Right.
I think he said a battered dog will never leave its master. So Gruener's a piece of shit, or just a straight up piece of shit.
Right.
So I was like, either he has broken the mind of this creature, or the creature has some kind of, because they hint at, we don't really ever know how far along, right? Because he said, what if they're just dumb fish, this and that. But I think later when we see Daenerys' baby, she looks in full control. She understands who he is. She understands the gift in the seashell bed, right? So I think they are a more cognizant creature than the movie lets on at the start. It's kind of Gruener's our only entry point to that. That sounds wrong. No pun intended. Damn. But I think what the movie's telling us is that, I don't know, is this like a dark little mermaid? Like she just wanted to be part of this world? Maybe she had something going, because like them fleeing to this rock to escape something, is she doing that as well?
I don't think that's the case at all.
Well, the movie asked the question, right? Why does she sing and lure her people onto the rocks to get slaughtered constantly? And it's a good question I had, right? Because we see her have free mobility through the island to go swim in the wave pools and, you know, even to bang the other guy. Friend eventually, as he's like, ew, gross, I can't believe Gruener did that. He's like, oh, okay, I will too. Friend definitely starts banging this creature too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so why does Daenerys not escape? And so it's either the Stockholm syndrome, right? Like she's been psychologically battered and broken by Gruener to where, you know, she thinks she has to come back, right?
Right.
Makes perfect sense. Or because the movie sets up that this rock is a place to escape something you're running from.
Right.
I think that kind of takes away from the sting of what Gruener is doing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I think in a way I don't like it because I think that thought that I was going down it kind of excuses what Gruener is.
Right.
Which I don't like, because this is the thing. Gruener is a man who has suffered so much loss, he's invented a new character to be.
Right.
Right? You could make the case that when he's given this gift of nature, right, to meet this other creature who he could form a loving relationship, a la Shape of Water, that he decides, since nature took away his wife, he's going to just hurt and batter this wondrous gift from the universe, right? This ability to form a bond with another creature. I don't know if I'm saying clumsy words as I try to explain away this train of thought.
No, I mean, like, I see what you're saying, though. Like, it's basically, it's not that you're trying, it's not about.
It's if Michael Shannon would have banged that merman to, like, show him his power instead of just having a cattle prod. That's what Gruener's doing.
Right, and, like, through that, you have to look at this sort of, like, it's not about justifying behavior, because there is no justification for it. But, like, Gruener's grief.
I think it's weird that they add that hand in the movie, right? I just think it's a not great choice. There's another way to show her, because it makes it seem like she's, even if you think about it as an adult, you're like, she's playing the part so Gruener won't.
I think Gruener's grief is so overwhelming. Like, there's something so overwhelming, and I get it. Like, there's something so overwhelming about grief that changes you fundamentally as a person. Like, I think that's a really important thing about, not to justify like what he did, because it's clearly monstrous and terrible, but to go through something traumatic and not change who you are as a person on a molecular level that would be strange. And like, I think the other, like, to speak to that argument, if he was like that way with his wife or whatever, like if he was that way with his family, no, like, absolutely not. There has to be an explanation.
Trying to tell us that before he was Gruener, he was this other man that could have been okay.
Well, before he was Gruener, he was friend. Like, he was trying to be a better person. He was trying to live in this.
He was someone who had love. He had achieved something in the military.
But he was also someone trying to find peace through nothingness. Like,
there's also this weird, like, they show the Franz Ferdinand article, which popped off World War II.
Yeah.
And then he's dressed in what looks like that same kind of uniform in his picture. And then at the end, it's World War I or II, whichever one Franz Ferdinand kicked off. I think
it's World War I.
One of the two, right? I remember the band Franz Ferdinand way more than the fucking man who got shot.
I'm sure you do.
Sadly, I'm a big dum-dum. I'm a big dum-dum. And sometimes when I'm watching my people having sex with not human movies, not real ones, just fun ones like this, like Shape of Water. A little history falls into my dip, right?
It's fair.
And you're like, all right, I'll still eat it.
I think that it's hard to like Gruener's such a monstrous character. It's a weird thing to imagine him being anything other than like to get him to this point. It's someone who has to suffer catastrophic loss and then on top of that have to try very hard to do what Friend is doing, which is find this peace through nothingness, and fail so miserably that when he sees the first companion he'll see, and because I gotta be like, I'm not sure, it's very suspect to me. Do you think Gruener was the original weather observer, and it was there another guy ever there, or was he always alone?
I think there had to be at some point two of them. They're two different jobs, right? Because they call the one guy weather observer, they call the other guy lighthouse technician. Is there a chance that he came as the weather guy, right? Because he talks about how this is more of a military post that has value than a weather post, obviously. They're just out there with little fucking sticks and compasses and shit, right? They're not forecasting back weather to the... It's bad. It's cold and it's wet every day.
Right. Yeah. Right.
You could get that weather report.
We're not doing the perfect storm.
Yeah, immediately. You could do that weather report after one day there. There is a chance that Gruener went in there because we see earlier that Gruener's like scratching on the rocks, right? He's like scratched his name into the rocks and this and that. So there's a chance that, yes, he also found himself in trouble. Maybe what I imagine in my head is that him and the other guy found this creature, right? And maybe through like a Gollum scenario, right? Smeagol Gollum. He wants this creature for himself. He maybe kills the other lighthouse keeper and takes this creature.
That makes sense.
Right? And then this psychology of him being alone and what he's doing for so long, right? Killing all these creatures, banging this creature, killing another innocent man for his lust. That he creates this Gruener character. I think it's kind of a Gollum Smeagol in my head. So yeah, I think there's a good chance that he was the lighthouse keeper who then became, or the weatherman who then became, who was a military officer placed there and then became the lighthouse technician.
Right.
I think there's a great chance that that's the case. I think there's times we see, right, like when they try to play chess. I think we see that he was once a normal guy and now he's struggling to find a way to connect with the human he used to be.
Right.
So to me, that switching of personality kind of hints at that too. There's this great scene when he sits outside frozen, right? He's trying to fucking blast all the toads to hell.
Yeah.
But he sits out there all night frozen, his eyes open. He looks like Nicholson at the end of The Shining.
Pretty awesome.
And
Pretty
Friend,
awesome.
It's an awesome moment, right? And Friend pulls his hand off slowly. And there's this moment of compassion and joy almost from Ray Stevenson's Gruener.
Mm-hmm.
Where he almost can't believe he still has a moment of kindness that the world is offering him.
Yeah.
Right? The world is this cold reality that he sat in all night, and the moment of this guy helping him, even for but a second, he's okay. Because there are weird moments, right? Like, why does Gruener take this guy out to the wreckage right after he sees him bang Daenerys, right? And you're like, oh, he's going to betray him and leave him out there in the scuba suit to die.
Right.
All right, well, what he really wanted was the dynamite. Like, why, once Friend bangs Daenerys, now he becomes obsessed with total toad apocalypse. Right?
Why?
It's almost, well, no, I mean, you kind of see it, right? There's just this, if he can't have it, he must destroy it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Right? And so it's a weird switch, but that switch, that moment of him kind on the frost-riddled lighthouse comes after they've already gotten all the dynamite. Right? So I think he realizes that he is again destroying these things around him, right? He could have a friend. He could have love. And he's destroying them because in that moment of realization where he's frozen and must pause and think about it. I think Ray Stevenson plays the weight of that moment beautifully.
I mean, it's hard to contemplate that level of loneliness. I think that's like you and I are both very lucky and we're with people that we love, and it's hard to contemplate how lonely you have to get where like when you see something even when it's another person that you've been like longing to spend time with at this point, to be so possessive of this scenario, not even a person, of just the scenario, that you're willing to blow the whole thing out, is pretty fucking crazy. And then it becomes a whole thing at the end with, but see, and that like becomes this whole oddity about the end when he like shouts like, "No one leaves Gruener!" Like, it's a whole thing,
right? And especially because we know it's not his name. There's a psychosis to it now. But so eventually they blow the fuck out of this dynamite to where they're all fucked up. They're walking around the next morning slowly, stabbing the toads, right?
Yeah.
Don't waste ammo. Gruener's back to stone cold. One of them is a woman character, much like Daenerys, who actually has a crafted necklace, which shows that these are not dumb fish that are just, missling to dinner. Right? These are creatures that have a culture and a family, right? I still don't know that they ever answer his question of why does she lure them onto the rocks to be slaughtered. And then I think they kind of answer it because they hear the sounds again, but distant, right? When he's like, she always comes back. Right? And he does the look at what we've done, man. Like, we fucked up. And Gruener doesn't give a shit. But when he hears their sounds in the distance, that kind of whale song thing.
Yeah.
And Friend is like, they're mourning. Right? I think there's a way that with this real emotional trauma, they hear her sad song up there. Whether she thinks she got captured or why she keeps going back, I don't know. Right? Some kind of, the captor has broken her and now she returns for punishment.
Right.
Maybe there's some backstory of why she fled to this island in the first place and he was able to help her, whatever. But I think it's showing that these creatures are not, because it's an illogical move. If these were just a predatory species and they were losing hundreds of them to raiding the rock every night, they'd stop going, right? Yeah. Like if you watch animals in nature, a lot of animals, you're hurt, man, the herd leaves you, right? The fact that they don't and they keep coming back to her and she keeps having hope that they will is to illustrate to us that they are closer to us than a creature, right? Well, that they're willing to do the illogical because of an emotional reason.
Right, and the juxtaposition being that Gruener is so far removed from this level of humanity.
1,000% bestial,
which,
right? Like
we didn't need to be informed of, but at the same time, it is like a really fascinating visual thing to be like, oh wow, we are not.
We don't need the Kevin McAllister talk boy saying I'm a pizza as I crush Little Caesars. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, we get it.
Every slice.
That's a hat on.
Kind of.
It's
pizza
a hat on
again,
a hat. It's a hat on a hat.
Yes. But they really drive this home. Because he could find a lifeboat. He kind of kills that idea. Because he knows Friend is leaving. He knows Daenerys is leaving.
Yeah.
Daenerys comes back. Time is kind of an amorphous concept in this. It's a movie almost removed from time, and I think that's important, right? Beards are our only timekeeper in this movie. But she comes back, and now she is with the child, right? And he's made this little boat that he leaves in one of the rock circles for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's this moment where they see each other, right? And the tribesmen are not attacking, right? They might be nervous and on edge because this is new for them. But with Daenerys' leadership in the front of the group with her child, or we assume it's her child, right? It might not be.
Yeah.
You see that they are calm. They're ready to reason. And they know that Friend is one of these characters. Because she's defended Friend against even Gruener at one point when they're fighting. Mm-hmm. So she knows that he is a different kind of human being. And Gruener comes out, and he's like, I said inside, no one leaves Gruener. But when he first sees Daenerys, he tears up and he smiles. He's ecstatic that his creature has come back. And then cannot contemplate the idea that it's gone bad to where he shoots a flare gun rocket and murders this kid. And it's the final... He's so fucking far gone now.
It's pretty gnarly, man. I got to be honest. Like I was not expecting that to be part of this ending, and I was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah, it's so fucking. I mean, he's really at this point just killing any chance that anything can turn around, right? Because even with all the dead that we've seen, Daenerys is coming with them and saying, "Guys, let's just fucking squash this."
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a chance that Daenerys will still come to see him. That they can still have a companionship of sorts, right? Yeah. But now it will be on equal footing, and he murders her child in front of her. To the point where him and Friend start fighting, And just the idea that friend calls him by his actual human name and says, "You're not a murderer, Aldous," or whatever his name is, right?
Yeah.
Aldous Dumbledore, you're not a murderer. And it's like, yes, he is. Read those books. Yes, he is.
Yeah. This dude's a murderer.
Yeah. And Gruener just gives up and just walks outside to be consumed by the nature he's violated for so long. If
Isn't
there's
it
a problem
like,
with the movie, I think that last beat is not as poetic as it thinks it is.
Yeah, I think that I agree with that. But
For Gruener to just hear it, because he has tarot cards in his picture of his wife and like, I love you, whatever. I don't think that is a poetic. I don't think there's a poetry in this movie for almost any. It's a real, like, you know, knuckles on concrete wall kind of movie.
Which is kind of fascinating because, again, there are these aspects to it that are very, like I said, like gothic romantic drama type thing that are like not, for it to end that way.
It is a very gothic ghost story ending. That's a good point you make.
Yeah, I think like for it to end the way it does, it's like it makes sense because of the aesthetics that they're putting forward.
Right.
But
there's no more nature for him to maim beyond that child.
But I agree with you. Like there is a level to it that feels a little. It's not wrong. Like I mean, they should consume him, and they do, and that's correct. Yeah. And like that's what should happen. And I do think like the poetry of it though is a little bit. It's a little more brutal than I think they. Is brutal the right word? A little more brutal than I think they were. I'm going to say it's the right word for now. But either way,
there is not enough time between him killing that child for us to feel a moment of empathy with him. That's the key ingredient.
That's a good way to
not
put it.
There.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, agree.
We don't feel sad for him that, oh, look, little Aldous had a hard life, and it's now we feel bad. Please don't die.
I was like, dude, you just killed a kid.
Open,
not okay.
My theory is that his wife died in childbirth, and so when he sees his other sexy time partner, maybe for a second he's like, does that little fish have a beard? And he's like, is that a little Gruener? And so he sees that this other creature he had made bed with now has a child, and it brings up that his wife died in childbirth, and he's seeing a child when he never had his child.
I think this is
why doesn't he shoot her? Why doesn't he shoot Daenerys?
I think this is the problem. All of these things, these are complicated emotions to go through. They happen way too quickly.
So fucking fast. In a really kind of like methodically paced film, this just goes real quick.
The ending comes so quickly in this moment, which
like
has
Gruener, the ending comes quickly.
Which has so many complex emotions. Like those are complex things to have to go through in like what would be the span of like 30 seconds probably in like real life time. That's what becomes unearned, is that there's no attempt at pathos. There's no attempt at, because you can't. You have to end this movie in a timely fashion.
There's no ability whatsoever for us to give a shit that all this is sad.
I think also,
and then him walking out is, oh, well, I'm sad, or he's getting relief. Like, we feel nothing for Gruener.
Yeah, I think the other problem too is that there's no inkling that all this fish fucking created a little Gruener with a beardy.
I'm like saying I think he's seeing the ghost of Victorian ghost style, right? I think he's seeing the ghost of the child and family he never had, but it's like an abomination in his mind, right?
Yeah, but see, like, and even that, which would make sense had there been a scene in the movie earlier. Like, he doesn't want to talk about it.
Had he had a toy in there instead of tarot cards?
Had he had any...
Like, he was a man who was searching for answers.
Had there been a scene where him and friend discussed it at all, it would have then it was like, that's a little more earned. I think because it happened so quickly and out of nowhere, you're like, okay.
There's no way out. And you couldn't find an actor who could play the fucking hard mountain of a man that is Gruener.
Yeah.
And still be as vulnerable as he did as Ray Stevenson. He does a masterful job of acting. It's just at that moment, there is nothing left in Gruener for us to mourn. There was no possibility of a better life. There was no, we're sad that his life went tits up. He murders a child.
Yeah.
Right in front. So there's just no poetry to that. And I think the ending, because there's no poetry, the ending has to be brutal. We have to watch him dragged on rocks, broken, battered. We have to watch Daenerys be the one that rips his fucking throat out. That eats his face off as he looks at her and says, please, mercy. right? She has to turn around and kill it, and we don't get any of that.
Yeah.
So the ending of Gruener kind of falls flat. And honestly, I think the him becoming the new Gruener, right, is the warship's a mess, and he kind of cries as he knows now he'll be taken back to society. Even if you imagine him and Daenerys have set up this like side piece deal where she's mostly a merfolk, but she can come visit him at the lighthouse.
Yeah.
I think that Gruener was made by this crushing weight of tragedy.
Yeah.
And we don't get the sense that our Gruener's still writing, our friend is still writing to someone back home, right? I see now that I was running to find peace through whatever. So he still has someone back home to write this fucking journal to, it seems like. Or if I remember the narration, there's something there. But him just saying, now I'm going to be the unwashed Gruener in the long johns and hammered all the time.
It doesn't work.
I don't think Friend is the same as, unless you're saying that Daenerys' kid dying is an equal level tragedy for him as Gruener, the first Gruener losing his whole family.
Right.
I don't know that the ending sticks on this one for me.
I'm going to say this. For a movie that really does a lot with kind of not a little in terms of like set pieces and that kind of thing, but a lot with a little in terms of like plot movement. Like the movie feels like it moves very well. The ending falls so hard onto like this like pyre of rocks and stabs itself through the head. You're like, huh. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to walk away now.
Are we all Gruener inside?
It's like one of those
fighting
things,
our Gruener, do we become Gruener ourselves?
It's like when you're like, right. And see, this is the other problem though, is that question that you're asking gets answered like, I don't know, 15 minutes before the end of this movie. And you're like,
I want to kill a kid. I want to kill a kid. I don't care how fucking mad and sad I was. I would maybe kill her. I would kill every one of those other people. I'm not killing that kid.
I'd like probably, it's one of those things you're
so
like,
I'm not
that's
a Gruener.
Something. Yeah, I know.
And neither is Friend, because Friend slaughters a ton of people in this movie.
Yeah.
He's not going to kill that kid. He still has a way out. So he's still not
It's
Gruener.
like this thing. It's, okay, you know, if you've ever had like a big family meal, someone is carrying something to the table and like the bowl or the plate or something just drops and hits the floor. Everything splatters. It's gone everywhere. And the reaction is like, all right, let's clean it up. That's like the end of this movie. Is you're just like one of those things. You're like, okay, well, we got to clean it up anyway. So it's just, that's over.
Yeah,
we're good.
They're going for a poetry, right?
Yeah.
But we see when Friend tries to make peace with them, he's not a Gruener. He's not able to defeat Gruener, so he's not this violent, horrible thing. Right. Still, he's not Gruener. It doesn't fucking work. And while Gruener may be a man who's hiding at the end of the world, that doesn't mean anything.
The metaphor I make for the end of this movie is somebody has made this beautiful meal and dropped it on the ground, and we order pizza. That is it. That's the only way I can really describe the ending of this movie.
Okay, so I was looking this up. I was like, does Gruener in German mean like monster?
Is this like the Vader father thing?
Yeah, the Gruener name comes from the Middle High German word grün, which means greenery. As a surname, it likely evolved from a topographic name for someone who lived in a green and leafy place. So Gruener is the name of someone who wishes he wasn't on this desolate rock with cold-skinned babes? Anywho, I thought that was going to be the key. There's no setup for the Gruener. There's no. And again, this is a movie that is, to me, I love the writing in this movie, and that's a great compliment with that much voiceover. I love the acting in this movie. I love the creature work in this movie. Right when she runs and dives in the end and swims away, like that's the moment I've been waiting for. Underneath the warships, that humans are now entering their evolutionary pool, so we will probably infect them with our own Gruenerness, right? That stuff kind of works for me. I love the action of this movie. I think when they fight, it is a real fucking bare knuckle fight kind of a movie. Like it's a violent movie that works for me. Totally. I like the location. The cinematography is great. This movie, the score is great. Like pretty much everything about this movie works for me. And at the very end of the movie, they do we can make this a little more art house. And I don't know if anyone can explain to me the Gruener thing at the end. Because again, we do this a lot, and we are the masters of what if this is all a dream ending and this and that? Like, There's no reason that he is calling himself Gruener now. Is he mourning the loss of the guy that we just spent the whole movie with? No. What? He's going back to society and he doesn't want it?
In a 110-minute movie, we just had to end the movie. And there's that I think is, and I'm not saying it's like
I'm saying
ending.
Pistol to your head. Why did the writer and director say he should say he's Gruener? Because he's no longer of that world and he knows he's going back? That's pretty dog shit. Not to be mean, that sounded really harsh. I love this movie. That's not a strong
but it's just
moment.
It's how it had to end. I don't know. Again,
we're all Gruener. And Daenerys is running and swimming deep to dodge our Gruenerness.
We ordered pizza. We had to order pizza because
he became the monster that he fought. And the abyss is the mer people looking up and going, woof, those people are insane.
I don't know. Sure, why not?
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's kind of one of those. But I think it's such a
still a good movie.
It's competent is an underselling of this movie. It's almost mature in how disciplined the movie is throughout.
Sure, yeah.
And the movie is not a movie that really seems to sink to lesser instincts, right? Like, what if we add this? And like, it really is a fucking very, very disciplined movie.
Mermaid fucking's probably as lowbrow as it gets in this movie, and that's not that bad.
But they don't make it grotesque. They don't really dwell on it. It's kind of just like this is what we do, huh? This is what people do.
It's just like to say that is like, oh, sex is the gnarliest thing we're gonna see in this movie, other than like killing a kid at the end.
It's just a violation of taboos, natural order. But yeah, I mean, again, I just think it's such a strong movie from start to almost finish. I mean, it's not like the ending like ruins the movie for me. You're right. At that point, once he kills that kid and Gruener's eaten, you could just go to black.
Yeah,
right.
That's it.
We have become the monsters we fought. I don't need the tag at the end. Like, it doesn't matter at all for 1 second. But yeah, I
don't care what the cycle of abuse. I don't care what the cycle of abuse of this island is. Just move on.
That's what I'm saying. And there's just, I love the tonality and the atmosphere of the movie. It was just awesome to watch Ray Stevenson just dominate. Like, I hadn't watched any of his work since he passed away, which usually I try to do when someone who I really appreciated does. Just got busy. So when we came up with the pod gets wit idea, this is the first thing that came to my mind. And I loved that man. I loved that man, and we lost like a real fucking treasure. Like a real fucking treasure of an actor.
I agree.
That's it for Cold Skin. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. The pod still got to get wet. We have some great aquatic adventures here. Great aquatic adventures leading up to 31 days, 31 pods. The October Mega Marathon is nigh. We stand on the edge of the abyss of the horror Mega Marathon. 31 days, 31 pods. The only way to make sure you get all 31, go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. Support the show, right? At the Spanish Peacock level, you are able to get every episode. No, that's not true. Spanish Peacock and then Kurgan level. If you're Kurgan level, you'll get every episode for the month of October. We do have a Highlander themed tiered system. So if you can support the show and if you would be kind enough, patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. Make sure you get every single episode in the 31 days. I mean, it's not as poetic to say 28 days, right? 28 movies in 31 days. You won all 31. So go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod. It's going to be a good one this year. The episodes we've recorded, I'm very proud of.
I like the one.
Dare I say this might be our best October Mega Marathon yet.
I mean, we say that every year. Here's my thing. As long as we're always making 31 pods in 31 days, the best one every year, that's.
I feel that way truly every year. It's such a great time to do.
I always feel like we do it better every year. So
yes. All right, YouTube Film Alchemist, the email filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. We're on all the socials. Make sure you leave 5-star ratings and reviews for us.
It's great.
Don't be a Gruener. Help us out.
Don't be an island.
Yeah, don't be an island unless you're on it with us.
Come to our island.
If you're going to be on a podcast, be alone with us in the podcast.
Yeah,
That'll save you.
We're great.
You won't commit war crimes against nature. Or at least if you do, don't take the pods out. Don't have us in your ears when you're committing crimes against nature.
Oh, hey, oh.